Running on Air by 11ty7. Chapter 12. In the apartment, the boxes of Draco's possessions sit neatly on the dining table. In the guest bedroom, there is still half a glass of water on the table, the bed unmade. Harry sits on the edge of the bed and removes the wand from his pocket. Hawthorn, 10 inches, unicorn hair. He'd fetched it from Gringotts on Tuesday afternoon when Draco had still been sleeping, and Harry hadn't started worrying yet. The wand had sat forgotten for years. Harry had meant to return it to Draco after the war, planning to owl it off and spare the awkwardness of meeting in person, but he'd simply forgotten. Too busy with other things, and the wand had ended up packed away in his crates of possessions at Gringotts after he and Ginny purchased the apartment. He'd never bothered retrieving the crates and unpacking. It took him quite some time to find the wand, and he wished he'd at least organized the crates in some way or labeled them. The wand was amongst a jumble of other things. Stacks of old Quidditch Weekly magazines that should have been thrown out long ago. One of the fair galleons Hermione made for Dumbledore's army, a broom compass, a Weasley jumper, Sirius's penknife. And Draco's wand. Harry had been surprised when he first disarmed Draco, seizing the wand and fleeing with it. He'd expected the wand to be resistant and somehow unfriendly, though he'd absolutely dreaded using Bellatrix's wand. But the wand had been no different than using, for example, Hermione's, and had proved itself an excellent wand in lieu of Harry's own. It makes Harry feel guilty again. Draco, judging by the letters written in the back of the calendar diary, had forgotten his original wand and had agonized over the obstacle of asking for its return. But for Harry, the wand hadn't even deserved a second thought. He'd made vague plans to return it, but had been too busy with stupid things, smiling and busy with his friends, his life, and he'd thrown it into a box of other forgotten items and left it to gather dust in a Gringotts vault. "I'm sorry," Harry wants to say, but Draco can't hear him. He's not here. He lifts the wand. Tranquillo. Draco's right. The spell doesn't work when attempted to cast on oneself. The next afternoon, as Harry's halfway through revisiting the latest case, Ron strides into the office. Ron ever only strides for something important, Harry knows. The rest of the time he ambles into the office, eyes roving around for bags of sweets. Ron never quite grew out of his lanky and meandering gait. "Malfoy's awake," Ron says without preamble. Harry looks up sharply. "When?" "He woke up last night around 9 o'clock. Went to sleep again, but they said it was a natural sleep this time. He woke up around 6 in the morning and then stayed awake." "How'd you know?" Harry demands, pushing the case files aside and standing up. "Just dropped one of the junior aura trainees off at St. Mungo's. He'd been practicing duels and accidentally replaced his own finger with carrots. Thought I'd ask about Malfoy while I was there." You asked about Malfoy? Why?" "Thanks a lot," Ron says, looking exacerbated. "I behave like a decent human being, and you interrogate my motives. Real nice, that is." Harry's too distracted to feel apologetic. "Nobody told me." "Well, they notified his mother this morning." Ron gives a sympathetic shrug. "You're not family, or even a friend. You're just the case manager." Harry frowns. "How'd you get all this information from the healers? They don't tell me anything." "What can I say? Natural charm." Harry grabs his cloak from the pack. "I'm going." "Oh, really?" Ron says. "Holdsworth's going to be madder than a brooding dragon if you leave without word. Suppose I'll just go and make up some excuses. Sorted it out for you then." "Thanks, Ron. You're the best," Harry says, ignoring Ron's sarcasm and stepping out the door. Ron's voice drifts after him. "You owe me, maid." Harry heads straight for the atrium. Draco has gone. The witch at reception has to tell Harry 3 times. She must think he's especially slow, as he can only stare uncomprehendingly as she smiles patiently and repeats the words cheerfully. "Mr. Malfoy sound out at 11 o'clock this morning. May I help you with anything else?" 11 o'clock. 5 hours ago. Harry nods at last and slowly turns away from the witch. He returns to the office, follows a lead on the Staffordshire witch, who was sighted near a hospital, and by the time he returns to his office again, it's 6:30 in the evening. It takes a long time to file paperwork, tidy his desk, fetch his cloak from the pack, even though they're on the cusp of summer, and the weather really isn't warranting of extra layers. He knows the reason for his lingering. He's hoping Draco will be standing by the apartment door, but he knows it won't happen. And as long as he's not there yet, still standing in his office, he doesn't know. Draco might be there, or he might not. Schrödinger's Draco, Harry thinks, with a wry smile. He disapparates to the apartment, appearing in the foyer, and takes the stairs rather than the elevator. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, Level 4. Level 5. Steps into the corridor. The apartments are half-floor, and thus there are only 2 doors in the corridor. On the left side, Harry's apartment. On the right side, his neighbor's. No visitors await at either door. He takes his key from his pocket. Every noise is amplified in the empty corridor. The faint jangle of the keys, the scrape of metal in the deadlock. The door swings open and he steps inside, noting the apartment is the same way he left it. The curtains are wide open, the setting sun casting the apartment in a gentle amber glow. He walks from room to empty room. The spare bedroom still has a glass of water on the bedside table, half empty. A faint scratching noise comes from the living area. Harry leaves the bedroom and hurries over, the glass sliding door leading to the balcony. An owl is scratching at the glass, looking displeased. Narcissa. His friends know not to owl him at home. The owls constantly arriving and departing would no doubt confuse or bother the muggles in his neighborhood. Owl me at the office has always been his rule. And aside from his friends, Narcissa is the only one who knows his address. His guess is correct. He reads the letter briefly. Dear Harry, thank you for all your efforts in finding my son. I shall speak to your supervisor and suggest a commendation for your work. Best wishes, Narcissa Malfoy. He reads it again and again. It's nothing. A polite thank you. A polite goodbye. A commendation. Like Harry did all this for a pat on the hat and a compliment. He feels nauseous, but after the queasiness recedes, he begins to feel angry. Angry that nobody has told him anything. Angry that Narcissa so clearly considers him to be of such little personal importance. She hadn't even mentioned Draco, where he was, or if he was all right. Even Astoria didn't bother to contact Harry. But why should she or Narcissa have bothered, after all? You're not family or even a friend. You're just a case manager. And, caught in a seething fog of anger, Harry throws a handful of flue powder into the fireplace. Astoria Ven's house. Matthew greets Harry first. He's sitting in an overstuffed armchair by the fire reading a newspaper, and he jumps sharply, cursing, when Harry steps out of the flames. Scared the living daylight out of me. I told you to drive. Why did you have to pop out of the fireplaces, for heaven's sake? Sorry, Harry says unapologetically. Is a story about? Matthew frowns. She is putting Sophie to bed. Listen, is this about her ex-husband? She's been very upset lately. Maybe you should talk about it tomorrow. No, I'm talking about it today, Harry says firmly, and Matthew looks at him for a moment. For a moment, Harry thinks he's about to tell Harry to leave. But then footsteps sound, and a voice cuts through the tension. Harry. Astoria stands in a doorway, a shadowed look on her face. She's had a long day, Harry thinks, noticing the smudges of darkness beneath her eyes. I heard Draco's awake. Harry says, his voice still a little curt. I'm sorry I didn't send you an owl. Astoria looks away. Where is he? Astoria makes a sound that could be a laugh or a cry. You don't know? No. He went back to the manor. Astoria's quiet again for another moment. Merlin, it was awful. Narcissa and I had the biggest row. We wouldn't have argued normally, but I suppose emotions were running high. I'd promised myself I'd be calm, but I couldn't help but feel angry. I know it's terrible, but honestly, 3 years, and look what he put his mother through. The first thing I asked him was, why? And then Narcissa arrived, and it was terrible because she was crying, and I'd never seen her cry. Did Draco say anything? Harry demands. Draco had never spoken of his 3-year ordeal, and Harry had left it alone. But all this time, if all Harry had to do was ask? Astoria shakes her head. I don't know. I think he tried to say something a few times, but I was a bit angry, really. Still trying to ask questions, and Narcissa was speaking over him. She kept telling him he had to come home to the manor and everything would be all right. And then? Narcissa and I got into an argument. Draco still looked terrible, and I said he should at least stay for another day. But Narcissa was insistent that he return to the manor and kept going on about quality of care. Sir says sharply, Honestly, she can be so stubborn. And what? He just left? Harry says, stumbling over the word slightly. He repeats him again, his voice stronger. He just left? Astoria nods. While we were arguing, he went and changed into his clothes. As soon as he reappeared, Narcissa took him down to the reception to sign out. Just left me there, like I was a bit of furniture or something. Harry doesn't reply. He stares into the flames. He just left. Draco just left. Went back to the manor. Of course he went back to the manor. What did Harry expect? He thanks Astoria for talking to him, telling him everything that happened. She offers tea. He declines. When he flees back to the apartment, he sees the Renault Megane keycard sitting on the counter. Well, Draco has to come back for that at least. He takes the keycard and puts it in his bedside table drawer. Harry tries to distract himself with other cases. 2 weeks after Draco woke and returned to the manor, Harry closes his 9th case, the Staffordshire Witch. In just a few more weeks, his time with the investigative division will end. He goes home that night and finds Draco waiting outside his door. He looks like the old Draco Malfoy. He's wearing a well-tailored suit and a set of neat black robes. His hair is neatly combed, his cloak pinned with a small gold owl. All that's missing is the air of faint contempt. Harry tries to say something casual, something nonchalant, but his mouth dries up, and all he can do is nod once at Draco as he fetches the keys from his pocket and unlocks the door. Malfoy, he says at last, and Draco looks at him. There is something in his gaze that is reminiscent of 6th year. A fragment of sadness hiding in the corner of his mouth. A trace of resignation in his eyes. Harry. Harry turns away quickly, making his way to the bedroom. When he returns, the keycard is in one hand. Draco looks at it, not moving. Your keycard? Harry says, holding it out. I know. They stand that way for a long time, neither moving. Then Draco takes the keycard and looks to the dining table where his boxes of possessions are still neatly packed. He draws a wand, his mother's, he thinks, and waves it at the boxes. Reducio. The boxes shrink until they're pocket-sized. Harry watches as Draco picks them up and moves towards the door. Wait, Harry says, and Draco pauses. Harry reaches into his pockets and throws the wand to Draco. He catches it daftly, staring at it. "There you go," Harry says, trying to make his voice sound light and casual. "Couldn't give you a time turner, but at least I gave you back your wand." Draco finally looks up, glancing at Harry before tapping his wand against the owl clasp on his cloak. It immediately curls in on itself, smaller and smaller until it resembles a tiny marble. It fades to silver a moment later, and small wings form along it. A small silver snitch clasp. "Leaving, then?" Harry asked, still trying to keep his voice light. "Yes." Draco holds out a hand, and Harry stares at it uncomprehendingly, wondering if he is supposed to shake Draco's hand and politely say goodbye. The thought makes him feel sick. After a long moment, Draco drops his hand. Then he turns and leaves, stepping out the door and closing it behind him. Harry listens to the quiet snick of the door, followed by fading footsteps. Harry stands in the middle of his empty apartment. The sun has nearly set now, eclipsing the apartment in cold shadows. He slowly, methodically, pours a neat scotch and goes out to the balcony listening. But nobody's whistling songs about southerly winds tonight, and the lights of the trains seem even more distant. Harry closes his eyes and leans over the railing of the balcony slightly, just to remind himself what it feels like to fly. When he returns to his office the next day, he solves his 10th case. It's easy to do. He takes the file from his desk drawer and opens it up to the first page. Case number L10332-5. Date filed 10th of September 2003. Case classification: missing. Name: Malfoy Draco. Other names: none. Turns the pages slowly. The photograph of Draco smiles up at him. He doesn't even remember Draco smiling in the picture. He always looked so serious and solemn. But he smiles at Harry now, a faint but present smile. Harry turns the page, covering the photograph with a blank leaf of parchment. Then he slowly taps his wand against the blank page. "Case closed," he says, the words falling like weights. Words slowly appear across the parchment echoing his statement. Case closed. Beneath the words, more letters appear. Reason: subject located. One more word appears on the parchment. Status: alive. And with that, the file flutters shut like a bird settling its wings. Goes home that night and finally pours out the glass of water on the bedside table, rinses out the glass, dries it, puts it away. Strips the bed and remakes it with fresh linen. It's like Draco was never there.